Further cyclone rumblings in the Indian Ocean, with a projected system in the Bay of Bengal. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for May 19th. We still have Cyclone Ialy, which is still holding its own very well as it parades towards the west of the Grande Terre, Seychelles. It is eventually going to be moving towards the coast of Africa at this rate, unless it turns northwards as expected. We are code blue for that storm right now. There are other systems to look at though, but not in the western hemisphere, but we'll look at it first. 13 days until Atlantic hurricane season, and it looks like this right now, a very quiet scene across the Atlantic Ocean, but we do have a moderate severe weather risk today in the central United States across the plains, mainly in Kansas. It's day 5 of Eastern Pacific hurricane season, and those little chances of tropical cyclone development, it really looked like it might have been on a few days ago. Well, that's all fizzled out. There's nothing left there in the Eastern Pacific. I'm quite surprised by that. I thought we'd really see our first storm pretty soon, but it looks like there's nothing on the horizon now. In the Western Pacific, we're giving a 30% chance an area of interest that's slowly garnering more model support, although we're obviously very skeptical after what happened a week ago when a system had a decent chance of forming and then all model support eventually collapsed. In the North Indian Ocean, we're now giving a 40% chance this area of interest that hasn't yet formed into a low, but it will form somewhere near that X and will eventually move northwards through the Bay of Bengal and could provide a substantial tropical cyclone impact to the coast of India. At the moment, it looks like it will be in West Bengal. There's the Ialy down towards the southwest Indian Ocean, and it could be a candidate for a storm getting close to the equator. One's already there, 60% chance there for an area of interest near the British Indian Ocean territory, moving eastwards, and rumblings that could actually already be a tropical cyclone. Well, here's Ialy right now, and its current location is 237 kilometers northwest of Grande Terre, the western islands of the Seychelles. It's 612 kilometers from Kilindoni in Tanzania on the island of Mafia, 657 from the capital Dar es Salaam, 679 from Zanzibar City, and 720 from Mombasa, Kenya. Somewhat familiar, this site, isn't it, with what happened a couple of weeks ago with Cyclone Hidaya. This one seems to be heading further west than expected as well. So let's take a look at it on satellite imagery, and mainly the cloud cover there is only affecting Grande Terre and possibly some of the islands nearby. Not really feeling it along the coast of mainland Africa yet. That's a blank screen, and we'll come back to that. Here's another view of Ialy. As you can see there, moving almost due west it would seem, which is certainly not what the forecasts have been calling for. Also looking pretty decent on that satellite imagery. Winds are pegged at somewhere near 60 miles per hour. It did appear that it might have been weakening a little bit, but convection still blowing up quite a bit there in the latest imagery. Although having said that, ASCAT have been reading pretty low on their latest pass on this cyclone. So there it is once again, moving westwards on the wide shot there, and looking very round, isn't it, and blowing up a fair amount of convection near the centre. So a decent storm, and a late season storm as well. At the moment it is still headed towards Tanzania. Now here's the other area of interest, 93S. That's the one that I was mentioning before that could be a tropical cyclone already. There is a circulation in there clearly, and there is convection blowing up towards the left hand side of it. It's very sheared, but is that enough to call it a tropical cyclone? Well, let us know what you think about that, but at the moment we're still giving 60% on a very slim window of development. But it could be upgraded at any time. General movement there is very slowly towards the east right now. We expect that will speed up a little bit later on. That's very grainy imagery there because it's still on the very edge of Himawari 9. The other view we were looking at before was the Korean satellite, the GEO. And looking at the Western Pacific then, this area of interest, well, there's still not much to its name right now, but there it is. So you can see a little bit of weak rotation. Convection is all over the place and only in little spots. And this is all across some of the southern Micronesian islands towards the central part of the chain. Here it is on our floaters on the Force 13 website. You can take a look at this live if you feel like it. I'm not sure you will, looking at that imagery. force13.com/satellite, and we are running an automated stream right now for all the current cyclones around the world with imagery just like this. And this is a look at some of the Atlantic areas right now. Then across the US East Coast, a few storms pulling up off the coast of the eastern seaboard there. Though you can see the southern part of the Gulf there. There's some storms over Mexico, and that's over the general area there. Looking at the Eastern Atlantic, you can see not much going on off Africa, but obviously this will be the place to watch as we get later on into the hurricane season, which of course still hasn't started yet in the Atlantic, but it is now underway officially in the Eastern Pacific. We've just got a little line of storms there over the ocean, not much to talk about. Western Pacific, there's a cluster of storms all over the northern and south China Sea there, affecting the Philippines, but particularly affecting southern China and Hong Kong. So quite a lot of precipitation there by the looks of things, and similar story there across the whole Indochina region. Lots of storms bubbling up there, and also across southern India and along the east coast as well. It's just missing a cyclone, isn't it? Well, this is the sea surface temperatures. The Eastern Pacific looks like this right now, and one or two really hot spots there, up to about 32 degrees Celsius off the coast of Oaxaca and into Guatemala. So temperatures really good. The Atlantic also really getting up there as well. The Gulf Stream particularly, a few spots there of 29 degrees Celsius, and around Cuba, one or two spots over 30 degrees now, especially in that small channel. Gulf of Mexico as a whole is getting much better there too. Western Pacific sea surface temperatures still climbing in parts of the South China Sea, very far south, up to 32 degrees, maybe more in one or two spots. Philippine Sea still getting up there as well. Guam, temperatures there around 28 to 29 degrees. Bay of Bengal, well, if that cyclone did form over there, well, look at the conditions. Sea surface temperatures extremely conducive for a lot of energy there, over 32 degrees Celsius in a few spots in the Bay of Bengal. Southwest Indian Ocean, where Ialy is right now, is actually entering warmer sea surface temperatures, not cooler, and where the other system is right now, similar temperatures of around 29, maybe 30 degrees. Off the coast of Australia, those temperatures still decreasing there, obviously entering the cooler months now, but still a few spots of 29 degrees off Darwin and off Western Australia. And the South Pacific looks like this. Fiji still enjoying 28 degrees Celsius waters. New Caledonia just about holding on to 26 degrees off the northwestern tip there. But in general, those temperatures are on decline. Compared to average, it looks like this right now. The Atlantic main area is very much above average, up to 4 degrees in some spots, and the western part of the Gulf of Mexico also above average. Bay of Bengal has a real hot spot on the eastern side of the region, up to 3 or 4 degrees above average there, and where Ialy is right now, there's a little area off the coast of Kenya and Tanzania where those temperatures are up to 3 degrees above normal. Oceanic heat content in the Eastern Pacific still looking quite decent actually. The Western Pacific though is really bulked up there in the Philippine Sea, so tons of energy there for any systems that form. We're just waiting for that first one. Of course, it is going to be a very late start to the Western Pacific once again this season. And the Atlantic looks like this. Off Jamaica, still that hot spot where we have some reds there, but still a few other areas looking decent, including one little area into the loop current there in the Gulf of Mexico. Western Caribbean looking good there too. Okay then, let's take a look at the computer models then for the next 5 days. So first of all, the GFS scenario for the Bay of Bengal system. Well, where does it first form? It will be somewhere near the Andaman Islands, just to the west there, into the Bay of Bengal proper, and then it starts to really get itself going by 23rd, 24th on that forecast, and becomes a hurricane equivalent cyclone by the end of that 5-day period on the GFS. It's been backed up by quite a few models this, and I expect that chances will be increasing. It does look like we're about to see our first Northern Hemisphere cyclone. And this is Ialy on the left hand side, and the other area on the right hand side, 93S. Ialy, its remnants make it to the equator, would you believe, just off the coast of Somalia, and possibly even slightly beyond. We're probably going to make a big deal of that if it gets more likely. But still the GFS is pushing for a turn towards the northwest quite quickly, and we'll see whether that happens. And then look towards the right, what's left of that invest. It didn't last very long there, but I think that's its remnants there, hugging the equator as well, getting up towards Indonesia. In the Western Pacific, the GFS is getting more confident once again on this area of interest, but so are other models, and the ensembles, there's about 17 or 18 of the 21 ensembles on board with some kind of tropical cyclone here, so certainly the model support is the highest we've seen so far, higher than the one we saw last week that failed. So we'll see what happens, moving northwestwards there and doing the usual on the GFS, as we see time and time again, becoming a substantial typhoon. Let's look at rainfall across the whole Indian Ocean area then over the next 7 days, and you can see it all piling up in various different spots, and at the end of this loop you'll see it really increasing up there in the Bay of Bengal with that cyclone. So we're looking at substantial amounts of rain for quite a few areas here. The areas that Ialy are affecting getting up to around 11 inches, that's nearly 300 millimeters, possibly some of it along the coast of Tanzania. Looking towards the area in the central Indian Ocean, getting up to 18 inches and 24 inches in part of the Bay of Bengal. Of course, that's before land. Over India itself, we might be looking at maybe 300 millimeters, but it's still very speculative so far. Into the longer range then, day 5 to 10. The continuation of that typhoon becomes a bit of a nothing burger, really. It weakens to a tropical storm as it reaches the Gasawara island chain, but peaks probably as a category 3 there on the GFS. Quite a small cyclone, certainly different to what we've seen in other runs, and off it goes northeastwards, turns post-tropical and goes usual route across the North Pacific. So the Bay of Bengal, well, there's this big system moving up and becomes a category 3 probably, and landfall near that intensity in West Bengal by the looks of things there, if my geography isn't too skewed, but then moves inland, weakens very quickly after landfall, but that is quite a substantial landfall there. They give a pressure in the 950s for that potential impact. We'll be talking about that a lot more if the signals continue to show. Scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Force 13 merch store, where you can take a look at all our items as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request. And our Still Waiting for Hone t-shirt, still very much available and ready. Well, in the silly range, day 10 to 16, only one thing that we're looking at, and goodness me, it's in the Atlantic, of course. Well, the Atlantic always likes to put on a show at the start of hurricane season, it seems, definitely in recent years. And in the first days of June, the GFS reckons that we might see a tropical storm form in the Western Caribbean. Take note that that is the area that's got the best oceanic heat content right now, but that is still very, very long range, and we'll have to wait and see whether anything like that happens. That's a tropical storm there in the first week of June. Well, on this day, there was another very powerful cyclone in a similar area to the one that's being forecasted, Bay of Bengal, an even stronger one actually. It was a category 4 with 130 mph winds, Cyclone 1B, on May 19th, 1997. I suppose it's a bit of a forgotten big cyclone there, and it pummeled that region of Bangladesh and Myanmar as it moved northwards into land. Almost like a smaller version of the Bangladesh cyclone of 1991, you could say, and I imagine it would have scared people to hell to see a storm like this approaching, but I can't remember what the damages were. I doubt they were that huge because we don't really remember it, do we, in our conscience? That was 1997. Well, back to this year, the first name on the Atlantic naming list is Alberto. In the Eastern Pacific, it's Aletta, and in the Central Pacific, we are indeed still waiting for Hone for the 5th year running. 17 storms so far this year, could be 18 shortly. In the Western Pacific, Uinyar is next up, and in the North Indian Ocean, it will be Remal if that system gets itself named. I know that there was another system a while back that got pre-named on social media. Don't do that, folks. The next name is Remal, but don't name it until the officials do. In the Australian region, the next name is Robin, the Southwest Indian Ocean, Jeremy, and in the South Pacific, it's Pitta. That's all from today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow.
Become an Ultimate Fan today.